I am incredibly excited about this. The Game Boy Color is back, better built, and supposedly includes a sapphire crystal screen. See, back in the day, my first big purchase as a 12-year-old was a brand new translucent atomic purple Game Boy Color. I had my own paper route, delivering newspapers from my bicycle. For you younger folk, a newspaper was like getting the internet printed out and delivered to your doorstep every morning. And a bicycle is a low-key lit lime scooter with a seat that can get your fit check from one fire spot to the next straight bussin' on the grind. And at 12 years old, I used my bike to secure that bag no cap. In fact, I saved up for months to buy this Game Boy Color. It didn't help that on my first week on the job, I broke a window with one of those newspapers, which absolutely wrecked my first paycheck. But that is when I learned that glass is glass and the rest is history. But we're getting distracted. Even though my OG Game Boy Color is still alive and well, and still fully functional with AA batteries that expired 9 years ago, it's pretty cool seeing a rebuilt, refreshed, and more durable version called the Chromatic, made by the company Mod Retro. On the website, Mod Retro claims the Chromatic can function with every Game Boy and Game Boy Color cartridge that's already in circulation, and that the body of the Chromatic itself is indestructible, which is a bold statement. Right off the bat, you can tell that the shape of both devices is slightly different. Nintendo, being one of the more litigious companies out there, means that Mod Retro has probably gone to incredible lengths to make sure its components differ just enough to be a standalone creation. Just like computer games can be played on any brand of computer, the Nintendo cartridges can apparently also be played on more than one console. I am, however, just the messenger, so Nintendo don't sue me. Unfortunately, Chromatic does still take AA batteries, 3 of them as a matter of fact. Feel free to hit that subscribe button if you want to see if these batteries also last a decade past their expiration date. Mod Retro says there is a planned custom rechargeable lithium battery pack coming, but it's not on their website as of now. And take a look at that backlit LCD. You remember those little coily things that illuminated the screens at night? Kids these days don't even know how good they have it. The original Game Boy Color wasn't backlit at all. That technological achievement came with the Game Boy Advance SP. I see that Sapphire is clearly notated on the bottom of the front screen, so it's going to be real awkward here in a few seconds if it isn't. Normally these sapphire crystal displays are reserved for only the most expensive and pristine of electronics, like the $800 Apple Watch Ultra. But as we work our way up through the most scale of hardness, passing 2, which is plastic, 6, which is glass, all the way up to a level 8, turns out this really is sapphire. Thumbs up for that. It's crazy to me that Mod Retro can offer a premium sapphire crystal display on a $200 handheld piece of nostalgia, where most smartphones these days just skip it. Very curious. There is no front camera, which is fine. Back in the day, that came as its own whole attachment. There was also a printer, but only the true gentlemen had those. There is an extra button on the side to access settings like brightness, frame blending, and firmware, which can be updated through that USB-C port. The USB-C port can also be used to screen share gameplay on a large monitor, but currently cannot be used to recharge the AA's. And like originally I was disappointed that the Chromatic didn't come in any translucent colors. I mean, if Linus Tech Tips could make retro clear screwdrivers, should be a cakewalk for Mod Retro. But the metal they chose instead is indeed more indestructible than plastic, so we can let it slide just this once. The metal is a magnesium alloy, meaning it's super lightweight while still being durable. It has a lanyard slot and a backwards compatible IR link up top for all those Pokemon battles. And there's another backwards compatible physical link cable on the side for multiplayer games for people who had friends. Personally, I never got to use my link cable. The bottom has a headphone jack though, which is nice. There's a loudspeaker opening as well as the USB-C port, which is mostly for decoration, unless you plan on connecting to that external monitor. The battery hatch door is made from metal, and flipping around to the front, every single one of the buttons is made from plastic. Now, this isn't the first Game Boy knockoff that's ever graced the market, many others being illegal emulators, but this chromatic is the first version trying its hardest to faithfully recreate the exact Game Boy Color experience, which means that the screen is identical to the original, exactly 160 by 144 pixels. The 10 by 9 aspect ratio is the exact same, but this screen is brighter, better lit, and works in the dark. Not to mention impervious to flame. I imagine the sapphire crystal's exceptional heat dissipation has a lot to do with that. But it's honorable that Mod Retro has kept a pixel-perfect representation. And to nobody's surprise, the thick metal body thwarts any kind of physical harm that I would attempt to inflict. The chromatic is a survivor. What about the internals? We can't let this chromatic sneak by without scoping out the insides. And in a throwback not realized by most, we find the same tri-wing screws that Nintendo uses on all of their hardware. This could very have easily been a Phillips head, but it's a neat little Easter egg to throw in there. They've put a lot of effort into maintaining the classic. And just like that, with 4 screws gone, the internals are visible. The back housing is standalone with no electronics attached. The volume dial appears exceptionally large, and the battery holder, which supposedly is removable to make room for the future rechargeable mod, which I would really hope comes into play someday since the company is literally called Mod Retro. It would be kinda dumb if they didn't allow mods. With the 3 screws gone, it looks like that new rechargeable battery could just plug right into the same slot. The motherboard is rather glorious, gold and black accents with resistors, chips, and contact pads scattered across the surface. The USB-C port and headphone jack are soldered in, and the Made in Mexico stamp on the back means that the price of this system is going to jump $50 when all the tariffs kick in. Kind of exciting. The backlit LCD screen is permanently glued to the Sapphire, so I'm not going to touch that. But you'll notice that each of the buttons, both the direction pad and the AB Start Select, are held in place with rubber pads. These have conductive circles on the back that come in contact with the motherboard, but the springy buttons themselves are just simple compliant mechanisms that obviously maintain their springiness for decades without losing any functionality. And of course the loudspeaker here in the corner. Keep in mind that some of the really old Game Boy cartridges have an internal coin-style battery inside, which allows you to save games. And if that tiny battery dies, the old games will no longer save anymore. Unfortunately, that battery replacement requires a bit of soldering, but it can still be replaced and repaired, so don't throw your old cartridges away. Overall, I think this thing is pretty dope. A fun little throwback for the nerd who never threw away his old hardware, and those who might still like to play their old video games at night again without having to leave the lights on. Anyway, I might be away from keyboard for a while after this, but thanks a ton for watching. I'll see you around.